I just saw this amazing clip go viral on X yesterday, taking place in New York City during one of Zohran Mamdani's speeches. A New York City patriot stands up and screams out to him, calling him a communist and informing him that this is New York City, not Cuba.
You are a communist! You are a communist! You will never be Cuba! This is not Cuba, you fool! So communism will never be there!
And watching this put a smile on my face, but also made me realize that it is long overdue here on this channel that I make a video about Zohran Mamdani and in truth explain why I'm actually hopeful that he wins. You heard me right. I want Zohran Mamdani to become the mayor of New York City. And if you're a liberal, I can promise you right now, it's not for the reasons that you think or the reasons that you want him to become the mayor of New York City. But I'll explain more on that later. Who is Zohran Mamdani? I want to show this clip of Ben Shapiro on The Breakfast Club summarizing who Zohran is perfectly.
He's lived a life that is one of the most privileged lives I have ever heard of any American ever. I mean, the guy has not held a job, and he's going to be the mayor of New York at the age of 33 after being a failed rapper. I'm a more successcul rapper, for God's sake, than Zohran Mamdani was.
You had one record, Ben.
I know. And let me tell you, it was a banger. Now, Nicki, it sucks. I understand.
That absolutely summarizes it perfectly. The man himself, Mamdani, that is, literally confesses to being a Nepo baby as a result of having a very successful father in Colombia. And what we're dealing with here is somebody who has absolutely no real life experience, who was essentially born rich, who is now running on the campaign promise, the good old Democrat secret socialist campaign promise of vote me in and I'll give you everything for free. Something we've seen time and again Democrats run on. Most of the time they're unable to deliver on. I genuinely believe Mamdani thinks he can pull off these campaign promises and that he'll certainly try. And you see, despite the fact that he was born very rich and never really ever had to work a job, Zohran Mamdani hates billionaires.
All right, you are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Now that's what we call envy disguised as morality and virtue. Typical liberal playbook right there. They hate any form of success that isn't theirs inherently. And that means most of the time they wind up hating people who are actually successful. This is the kind of clip that every fat, greasy liberal cheers and yells and actually jumps out of their chair when hearing, fist bumping into the air just after they've opened up their disability check and their government welfare check while watching television at 11 a.m. instead of working a job, listening to clips like this on the news. If that's you, by the way, please be sure to dislike this video and never subscribe to this channel. You're not welcomed here. But moving on, Zohran Mamdani not only hates billionaires, but then goes on to say that he wants to work with them. In the real world, if he had any real world experience, he would know that this isn't quite how that works. Imagine going up to somebody and saying, hey, I hate the very fact that you exist, but let's work together. And on top of that, he, of course, like any other Democrat, especially a young, foolish Democrat, wants to tax the rich even more, going so far as to say that he wants to focus on taxing the white neighborhoods of New York City.
We went on your website and realized there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. We've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes. And yet, by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And ultimately, the thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that we actually have an equal playing field. And right now, what we see with the property tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing others, and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website?
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just a necessity.
I mean, I can't really blame him for focusing on race. I guess that's just how it goes. That's just how the world works. And if we're being honest with ourselves, of course, it is oftentimes the very white neighborhoods that are very rich. So maybe he has a point. I, on the other hand, also kind of advocate for the same thing in a reverse fashion. I've always been very outspoken towards increasing police presence in those poor black neighborhoods because, crime is a lot higher there. So I don't blame him for that. Statistics don't care about your feelings, right? And so maybe he has a point there. Now, taxing rich people more, on the other hand, is, of course, a ludicrous Democrat point that almost everybody with any economic sense understands is actually not even really a good idea or possible in a lot of cases, since, rich people have the luxury of having so much more wealth and resources than the average everyday man that they can literally just move cities on a whim, especially if the elected officials of that city are literally giving them an advance warning and saying, hey, if I get elected, I'm going to tax you a lot more. And we've seen that pattern play out time and again. Of course, it gets worse with him. This is another thing we've seen play out time and again and literally fail every single time, but it doesn't stop him from making this promise because this really does appeal to poor people, and it works because poor people never think more than one step ahead. All they do is hear what sounds good and go, yes, especially if it applies to them like this. 30 by 30. This is the campaign promise with the nice cutesy catchy slogan, 30 by 30. That means $30 minimum wage increase by the year 2030. This is one of his ultimate campaign promises because raising the minimum wage solves all the problems, doesn't it? The national minimum wage, I think, is still $7.25 across the board, but in a lot of these liberal states like New York or like California, for instance, we've seen this play out already. I believe New York's minimum wage is $15 an hour, and California's went up to $20 an hour, I believe. What wound up happening there? Is the quality of life better for those residents? No, because if raising New York's minimum wage to $15 an hour, for instance, made everything better like the original promise said it would, then there wouldn't be a need to raise it now to $30 an hour. You're chasing rabbits at this point is what's going on. You're like a dog chasing a car. You'll never actually catch it. It's not possible to catch it because it's minimum wage. It was never supposed to be a livable wage. And again, everybody with common sense knows this, but poor people are so desperate that this sounds too good to pass up in a lot of cases. I, in fact, actually found an incredible clip from John Stossel talking about how it failed miserably when California raised their minimum wage to $20 an hour.
The socialist politicians also say they'll make workers' lives better by raising the minimum wage to $30 an hour. That's popular. Last year, California's fast food workers celebrated the new $20 minimum wage.
My workers, we did this!
But when companies have to pay even beginners at least $20 an hour.
Pizza Hut preemptively laid off 1,200 delivery drivers like Michael Ojeda.
What's the point of the raise if you don't have a job anymore?
18,000 fast food jobs vanished, while other states added jobs. Also, consumers have to pay more.
Restaurants in the state have increased prices by 10% faster than all other states.
It's just supply and demand. Socialists can force businesses to raise wages, but there's no free lunch. Employers respond either by raising prices or replacing workers with machines like Flippy.
Flippy can cook everything from French fries and onion rings to cheese sticks. White Castle said it plans to add 100 Flippies to its kitchens nationwide.
I especially like the last point made here with Flippy, the robot, because here's the thing. The liberals will tout all of this stuff like, well, it's just corporate greed. That's the reason why these businesses do this. It's because there's no regulations on them. So in spite, after they're told they have to pay their workers more, they just lay them off and raise food prices because it's all about their profit margins. Which, of course, the answer is, yeah, it is. That's pretty much how the economy works. That's how any good business works. It's literally about profit. And while they can technically lawfully force these businesses to start paying their workers more on a minimum wage front, they do not have to keep their employees, especially with the advancements in robotics and technology like this. This is something that's inevitable anyway, regardless if they raise minimum wage. However, raising minimum wage by such a drastic amount, like to $30 an hour, is going to speed up this future. It's going to cost people more jobs, just like it did in California. This is just such common sense. The problem is liberals are purely emotional. They disregard all logic for the sake of feeling good. It's all about this fantasy to them that will never play out because of literally things like Flippy. His policies, of course, just get worse the more you dig into him, which has you probably thinking, why would you ever want this guy to win and become mayor of New York City? And again, I will explain that at the very end. But now, this was him talking about how he wants to make public transportation in the form of buses completely free for everyone.
Ultimately, one of the reasons that I support making all buses free is that the MTA has said that success for fair fares would be maybe 50% of the eligible population utilizing that program. I want 100%. And the best way of doing that is by making it free at point of service. For our buses, we've seen this can transform the way people get around the city. It's an idea that actually started in some ways with Michael Bloomberg many years ago.
And he claims that by doing so, New York City would open up its buses to more people, encouraging more people to take the bus, allowing more people to be able to take the bus. And in his mind, he assumes that this would increase New York City's productivity. More people can now get to their jobs, more people can get to where they need to go, and less people would be driving their cars. But again, there's already case studies on this, much like the minimum wage hike increase to $20 an hour in California, where we now have documented proof of the fallout that happens after doing such things. We have the same documented fallout right here in America in other cities that have made their buses completely free. But first, I just want to point something else out on a little side tangent here. While he was speaking, this flag was flying behind him, and I found that to be rather appropriate because this already went viral a little while ago, and I just didn't want to cover it because I've already covered a stupid Democrat trying to bench press and look cool. But this flag is very appropriate after you see this video right here of Zohran Mamdani trying to bench press 135 pounds. It went even worse than the last Democrat who benched it, who at least hit that weight for a couple of reps. This was his attempt right here.
This is how you move up in the pole! Yeah!
This is how you move up in the poll, they're chanting.
This is how you move up in the polls! Yeah!
I will commend him for, he's got his feet planted perfectly. He's using some really good leg drive there. Not a lot of guys know how to do that. Probably because he's desperate, trying to use every muscle in his body to lift 135 pounds. Yeah, that's him benching it all right. Look at how hard the spotter is flexing. He didn't bench that not a single time. Yeah, look at that. He didn't bench that not for one single rep. That's a weight, by the way, that I benched for the first time when I was 12 years old. There's just something about the Democrats and testosterone. It doesn't seem to mix. Democrat and testosterone are antonyms. But back to the point. You have former Mayor de Blasio of New York City siding with him on the free buses and literally saying, well, we know this works, and then getting called out for it on MSNBC of all places, getting called out for it, where he can't provide a source or citation of where it's worked.
Free buses.
And who runs that?
The city of New York runs it, just like we run so many other services. And the bottom line here is to think about the free buses again. Free buses has been proven to work in many parts of the country.
Where?
I'll get you a list of cities, but the bottom line is it is something that allows people to, one, reduce their costs, which people are overwhelmed by, to get into mass transit more.
I'll get you a list of cities. By the way, he never got him the list of cities because he can't. Not because cities don't actually offer free buses, some of them, but because it never turns out good. And here's some statements that were made on that I found to be, and here's some statements that were made on that This is from Doge AI on X. Free buses proven to work? Boston's Route 28 pilot burned $8 million in federal funds while failing to address core issues like maintenance, backlogs, and safety. Boulder County's Ride-Free Longmont program saw ridership spikes, but collapsed service reliability. Average wait times doubled within 18 months. This just makes sense. If people are piling onto the bus at every single bus stop, then the bus has to wait around longer while everyone gets on and off the bus, and the bus fills up to the point where it might actually hit maximum capacity and can't even take people beyond that anymore at that point. This X user right here lists out every counterpoint I thought about to free buses, while also adding in the fact that, unlike me, she actually has experience growing up in a communist country where she saw this fail. And she says, even in a communist country I grew up in, buses were never free. If they make it free, homeless people, drug addicts will literally live in them. Yes, let's just lock everyone in, the good and ugly. I can just smell it. That should be fun. That was literally my first thought process, because I've rode on public transportation in the past, back in my teen days and early 20s before I had a car. And when I was doing that, homeless people were already occupying the buses in the cold winter months because it was freezing cold and they had nowhere else to go. And the buses weren't free, but they were very cheap. A day pass at that time was like $5. And so a lot of times they would beg for money on the streets, get $5, buy a day pass, and then just literally sit on the bus all day. In some cases, by the way, you would see an entire row of seats taken by one smelly slob homeless, jobless bum laying on all three of them like a bed and asleep. That's the reality of free buses. And of course, his bad policies don't end there. The final thing I want to cover with Zohran Mamdani, policy-wise, before explaining why I want him to be elected mayor of New York City, is the campaign here on government-run grocery stores to make groceries more affordable for all.
Are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
And my response to all of this is, of course, if I'm going to be a stereotypical conservative, it never works, but I got an excellent quote here from Nobel Prize winner Milton Friedman, a super genius economist of the past. His quote is, "If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years, there'd be a shortage of sand." And that is already true, because once again, Zohran Mamdani won't be the first person to try out a socialist grocery store run by the government. This is in Kansas City, where a government-run grocery store already existing there had to shut down after burning through $29 million of subsidies and not being able to maintain an inventory for anybody to be able to purchase goods.
For months, the store hasn't fully been stocked. Still, person after person comes to buy groceries.
I thank the previous operator for the years they put into that, as well as their predecessor. And now we'll try to do all we can to make sure that this works.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is disappointed. He met with the store operator 2 weeks ago for hours trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I know there are different challenges to how a grocery store can operate. Part of that challenge is that the city certainly has been happy to be a partner, but there's always a limit to what we will invest as well.
It comes down to money. The city owns the building and has invested nearly $29 million in the store. Still, the Sunfresh was losing money.
All of a sudden, you roll down here this morning and they're gone, and they're saying they're not coming back.
It's gone. It's not coming back. It only wound up losing money, go figure, because it was government run and wasn't focused on profits, which is what all businesses thrive off of, and it burned through $29 million. What a disaster. It's not going to be any different in New York City. Zohran Mamdani won't be the answer. He won't be able to figure out how to make it work because it can't work. Bottom line, it's already been tested, not just here in America, mind you. Other countries are even worse about this stuff. And at the end of the day, the summary for Zohran Mamdani's plan to become mayor of New York, what he wants to do after achieving that goal, is he wants to first and foremost ensure that billionaires don't exist. He then wants to tax rich white people and take all of their money to make all of his other plans work. From there, he wants to raise minimum wage to $30 an hour over the next 4 years after being elected. And then on top of that, despite raising minimum wage, which in their theory at least should make everybody a lot more wealthy, he still wants to provide a bunch of free and lower cost things like free bus transportation and lower cost groceries via government-run grocery stores, essentially killing all small businesses or even medium-sized businesses in New York City, especially when it comes to grocery stores, because what happens when you not only raise minimum wage by double in 4 years to $30 an hour, where small businesses literally now can't afford to pay workers, but then on top of it, you compete with those small grocery store businesses, those local New York City delis that are so famous, and convenience stores, by just opening up government-run ones that don't need to focus on profits because it's run off government subsidies and funding, well, they all go out of business. This is the least small business, capitalist-friendly candidate we've ever seen run, probably in American history, and he is doing well in the polls. And so why do I want somebody like this to win? Well, it all goes back to what I realized back in 2021 when either the election was stolen or not, that's up for debate still, but when former President Joe Biden won. I remember being outraged and angry, but also taking time to reflect and think about the future of America over the next 4 years. And maybe I'm just sick enough in the head to have eventually come to terms with the fact that this was going to be great for America's long-term health. You see, a little bit, or in some cases a lot, of suffering goes a long way for forcing a new perspective onto the American public. Unfortunately, history is rhythmic and oftentimes almost repeats itself because generations have a short memory. People tend to forget. And that's really what is going on right here in New York City and in some other cities when it comes to these socialist, borderline communist candidates. People are so privileged and spoiled here in America that they just have lost all complete understanding of how bad socialism and especially communism can be. And so what we need is another wake-up call. That's how I viewed Joe Biden's presidency, and I smiled genuinely throughout his presidency. Every mistake he made, every bad policy he wrote, everything terrible that happened during his presidency made me increasingly grateful for it because I knew America was becoming more and more outraged in the process. And I turned out to be correct on that standpoint because back in November, we saw the actual red wave occur. Every single state in America became more red and less blue. Even states like California, they didn't, of course, shift to red, but they became significantly less blue. New York as well. The two most liberal states voted more conservative than ever before, and Trump won in astonishing fashion. The popular vote, the Electoral College, all 7 swing states. It was a complete beatdown of the Democrat Party because Joe Biden reminded everybody just how bad it is to have a stupid Democrat in office. Zohran Mamdani for New York City will be no different. In fact, he'll be even more of an extreme example. He's going to remind everybody, especially these younger generations perhaps that are falling for this because free stuff sounds nice when you haven't made your way in life yet. What he's going to do if he gets elected is he's going to sink New York City. And I have no love for states like California and New York to begin with. So let them sink. Let them be destroyed by liberal policy. Let it be a wake-up call for the rest of America to watch and learn from, just like we did during the Biden years. That is why I want Zohran Mamdani to win and become mayor of New York City. It's not going to affect me, but it'll certainly affect people enough in a way that it could help the generations coming up to understand why these policies are stupid and why they don't work. What are your thoughts and opinions on all of this, though? Be sure to subscribe right now to American Advocates for more content like this, and leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. The comments truly help videos like this perform well in the algorithm. Thanks for watching.